Hello students, I welcome you all to this session on compiler design. Uh, you already learned a preliminary subject before this subject, flat formal languages and automata theory in your second year, second semester. And you can assume this as a continuation of that subject because compiler design is actually an application of formal languages and automata theory. We'll make use of those concepts we learned in that subject for designing compilers over here. Okay, and let us have a look at the syllabus that we are going to cover. In first unit, we have few basic concepts that introduces you to language processing. The first part is introduction to language processing. We'll discuss about several types of language translators, and also we will differentiate between the types of translators, language translators, and then we discuss about the structure of a compiler, how actually a compiler looks like, how it works, what are the different phases of compiler, all these things. And then the evolution of programming languages and the need of changeover in compiler design, and how do we actually build a compiler, what are the steps in it, and several applications of compiler technology, and some programming language basics. So this is chapter 1 of your first unit. And then we actually begin designing our compilers by considering the first phase of it, lexical analysis. We will understand what exactly a lexical analyzer is going to do in a compiler, and then how it will be efficiently constructed by discussing about input buffering, and then how to specify the tokens and how to recognize the tokens. And finally, we will talk about a real-time lexical analyzer creator or generator, a special tool called as Lex. So this is about your syllabus. And let us start our introduction part. What are the several components of language processing and all? So the first component of any language processing system that we need to understand is a compiler. I think all of you know what is a compiler. You use this compiler in C language also while going through Linux editor by writing a C program and saving it with .c extension. You will compile that program by using a command called as cc. So cc stands for C compiler. So there you come across this compiler. What exactly a compiler do? Compiler is a software which converts a given program written in high-level language into a program or something which is in low-level language. Generally, this high-level language is also termed as source language, and the low-level language is also termed as object language, or object code, or target language, or target code, or machine language, or machine code. Whatever the name it is, we simply call it as a low-level language, which is understandable by the computers. So why we actually need this compiler is we write the programs in a high-level language, which is actually not understood by the computers. Therefore, we need a translator for converting our high-level language program into a machine understandable program. So we construct a compiler, or we use a compiler to convert this high-level program into a low-level program. So that is what a compiler is, right? You can see that in an image. It converts the high-level language into low-level language, as well as another task of this compiler is to generate the error details. If at all your program contains any errors, it also displays the details about the errors identified in the corresponding program. If no error is identified in the high-level program, then it converts the program into low-level program. Otherwise, it generates all the errors. So that is the first component of any language processing system. And then Another important component of language processing systems is interpreter. Interpreter is actually uh, uh, used in every language processing system for the purpose of executing one statement at a time. You can see it here. The machine code is done by language processor and executes immediately before moving on to the next line. So it considers only one statement from your executable program and immediately tries to execute. If at all any error is identified in that statement, then the interpreter terminates its translation process and stops the execution and displays an error message, right? And only when the interpreter mm, uh, identifies that the error is properly removed, then it moves on to the next statement. Otherwise, it stays back, it stops the execution over there, and then it displays the appropriate message. So, interpreter directly executes instructions. There will be no intermediate code generated, just like in compiler. A high-level language is actually translated into a low-level language. There is an intermediate code generated over there, intermediate file generated over there, but interpreter will never convert a high-level language into a intermediate representation. It simply considers one line at a time from your high-level program and immediately tries to execute it, right? Of course, while executing, it converts, but it will not represent that corresponding statement in any temporary, any file over there. So that is the first and foremost difference you need to understand. Compiler always produces an intermediate file where the executable code is available for further purposes or further execution. Whereas an interpreter, it never produces an intermediate file that consists of the target code. It always considers one line at a time, converts it, and then immediately executes that converted line uh, produced by producing the corresponding output. If no error is there in the corresponding line. If error is there, execution stops, and then immediately error message gets displayed. So that is the working of interpreter. And you need to understand one thing here. When you talk about interpreter, there are actually two types of interpreters. One interpreter is, you already learned Python in your second semester, 2.2. Python executes the statements line by line by using an interpreter. There is no compilation in Python. Even if you know the R language also, R language also gets executed immediately through the interpreters, not by using any compiler. So there will be no intermediate file generated for the interpreted languages, right? Have a look at this. Interpreter takes the source program as well as the input in parallel, if at all any input is required, and then immediately interprets it, executes it, and produces output. In case if the source program contains any errors, it produces error message and stops the translation process and execution, right? So you can read this simply. Interpreter is a program that reads an executable program and produces the results of running that program. Executable program is executed by your interpreter. In most of the cases, when a high-level language program is converted into low-level language program, your operating system acts as an interpreter so that the output is generated by your program. But there are some languages where separate special interpreters are available for execution. For example, I said Python and R programs, programming languages have their own interpreters. You can directly execute them without any compilation, right? Now have a look at these differences between compilers and interpreters. Compiler takes the entire program as input. The entire program, just like in your C language, you submit the C file to the C compiler by using the command cc followed by filename.c. That is how you submit your entire program to the compiler. So compiler takes the entire program as input and then checks for the syntax errors. It displays all the errors throughout the program, right? So starting from the first line of your program and checking through the last line of the program, whatever error is identified, every error will be displayed in a single stroke. So that's what compiler did. Whereas in case of interpreter, interpreter considers only single instruction at a time for execution, not for the compilation, for execution. If there is no error identified, that single line will be converted into the target code and immediately that target code gets executed. So interpreter takes one line, it considers one line at a time. If no error is there, it translates and then immediately executes and then move on to next line. Right. So if any error is there, it simply stops the translation process and displays the error message. That is the first difference between compiler and interpreter. And then second difference is, in case of compilers, intermediate object code is always generated. So if you run that cc command in Linux, it will produce .exe file. Or in some cases, for example, if you use any TurboZ or some other file, produces .obj file object codes. Whereas in case of interpreters, there will be no intermediate object code generated over here, right? And the third one is conditional control statements executes faster. In case of interpreter, conditional control statements executes slower. The reason is very simple, because all the executable code is directly available. The execution of a particular block of statements is faster. Here it needs to wait. Statement 1 needs to be evaluated, executed. Statement 2 needs to be evaluated, executed, and so on. And whenever you run a program, every time the program needs to be converted. In compiler case, compile once, execute any number of times. So execution is going to be very faster for compiled programs, whereas in interpreted programs, execution is a bit slow. The reason is every time when we try to execute a program, you need to convert and then execute. The convert step is required in every execution step. That is the reason why the execution is slower here in interpreter. And then for compilers, memory requirement is more. Now you can easily guess the reason for this. Memory requirement is more just because object code is generated, so you require additional space for storing this object code and this corresponding supported files also, linked libraries. Whereas in case of interpreter, there is no object code generated, therefore memory requirement is less. And fifth point is, program need not be compiled every time. So that's what I said. Compile only once and then execute any number of times. There is no need to compile the program every time that you want to execute until and unless there are some changes in your program. If any changes are there in the program, then you need to compile again. Otherwise, you don't need to compile. You can directly execute the corresponding object code, which is readily available. Executing object codes are very faster, as we already discussed. And then in case of interpreter, every time high level program need to be converted into low level program. Therefore, whenever you want to execute, you require two steps always: compile and then interpret. Right. So conversion always takes place in interpreter whenever you want to execute, whereas in compiled programs, compile once, execute any number of times. And the sixth point is, errors are displayed after entire program is checked. I told you this. The compiler checks every statement in the corresponding program that is submitted and identifies all the errors, displays all the errors at one point. Whereas here, every instruction, every single instruction will be interpreted. Therefore, whenever an error is identified at a particular point, it displays the error and terminates the process. So you will not get all the errors in your program. The interpreter stops whenever it identifies a single error while interpreting the program. And examples, C compiler is an example for and also C++ compiler. Whereas for interpreter, I told you Python, R, and so on. There are some other languages which are available, which directly are executed by the interpreters. And there is another concept called as a hybrid compiler, which is a combination of both the compiler as well as interpreter. Interpreter means it does not come along with the regular operating system. You require an intermediate interpreter that is developed for the purpose of executing your high-level language programs only. So if you look at the Java programs, the way the Java programs gets executed, if you remember the process, you compile the program by using JavaC command, which actually produces bytecodes. Bytecodes is an intermediate representation of your high-level Java program, but bytecodes are not directly executable. They are not directly executable. Therefore, you require a special virtual machine, which is called as JVM, which takes the bytecodes as input and produces the executable target language. Therefore, you can say that Java compiler is a hybrid compiler which has two parts. One is a compiler, a regular compiler, which produces bytecodes, and then a virtual machine which produces the final executable code. So you can see it here. A translator is available which produces intermediate program, and a virtual machine which can interpret your intermediate program and produces outputs. Right. So this is a hybrid compiler. An example compiler which you know is a Java compiler. Java compiler is a hybrid compiler. Sometimes people call it as just-in-time compiler, JIT compilers. Just-in-time compilers are hybrid compilers. If any language supports that JIT compilers, it means it is hybrid compiler. Okay, right. Now, so having known all these things, now let us have a look at what is this language processing system, what exactly it consists of, and again we are going through some other new concepts over here. We already discussed about compilers, interpreters, and hybrid compilers, which are part of the compiler only. And other than compiler, the language processing system contains these components. If you look at the diagram, there is a preprocessor component, there is a compiler component, which we discussed till now. There is assembler component, and finally there are two other components, linker or loader. So if you look at a language processing system at a broader view, it consists of all these components. Now let us have a look at these components and their roles in a language processing system. So the first component in a language processing system is preprocessor. What it does is, it takes the source program. For understanding purpose, let us consider a C program. For understanding purpose, let us say you wrote a C program which consists of some statements inside it. Let us say hash include stdio.h followed by some void main followed by printf hello. This is the simplest program you wrote, and you want to execute that program. Right now, let us understand what this preprocessor does. In a C program, every statement that begins with hash is actually known to be preprocessor statements. Right, so that hash symbol represents the preprocessor directive where all the library files are stored. So from where we actually get the definitions of all the header files. Right. So when you write hash include stdio.h, hash specifies the location of where exactly the library files are stored, and from there you will get your stdio.h definitions. Right. So preprocessor, what it does is it expands or it substitutes the corresponding header file into your program. Your program actually contains a main followed by a printf statement, but when it goes through the preprocessor component, what preprocessor does is preprocessor substitutes that stdio.h file, the entire file will be now become part of your C program. So even though you wrote 3 statements in your C program, now this file size becomes more because stdio.h, the entire stdio.h is now substituted in your program. It becomes part of your program, right? So that is the first job of preprocessor. What is it? Including the library files as part of your program. And another job of preprocessor is macro expansion. Macro expansion means one job is file inclusion, as I told you just now. Another job is macro expansion. For example, in C language, you know how to declare macro constants by using hash define. Let us say hash define space, say some variable max is there, space 20. That declares a variable, a constant max to 20, right? And then you can make use of that max variable as part of your C program without specifying 20 over there. You can use that max constant, max name for using that constant 20 throughout your program. So this macro expansion means that whenever you use that max constant in your program, it should be replaced by the corresponding value. So the value, if the value is 20, every max occurrence needs to be replaced by 20. So who does this? It is done by preprocessor before even it goes to compiler. So there are 2 steps, 2 things, essential things done by our preprocessor. One is inclusion of corresponding header files as part of your program, and the other thing is macro expansion, substituting all the macro constants with the corresponding values, right? So this is the first step. And now whatever output you got from preprocessor, it will be called as modified source program. It will be transferred to compiler. Compiler takes this modified source program and then translates this modified source program into some target assembly program. This step is actually invisible in most of the compilers because you cannot see the assembler as part of it. Compiler and assembler are integrated together so that we directly get the machine code, relocatable machine code we directly get, right? But for understanding purpose, because we are looking inside the language processing system, we'll consider these 2 components as 2 separate parts of language processing system. So the main job of compiler, as we discussed already, is to translate the modified source program into target assembly program internally, which will be given to assembler, right? And during this process, compiler may produce error messages also, as we discussed earlier. Assume that there are no errors. Compiler successfully translated your modified source program into target assembly program. Now, internally, assembler comes with the compiler itself. Therefore, it takes the target assembly program and then converts that assembly program into relocatable machine code. So that's what the job of assembler is. If you know the evolution of programming languages, in earlier stage, programmers will be writing programs in machine language, which consists of only zeros and ones, which is actually a tedious task, a very difficult task to write the programs. Therefore, the next evolution is assembly language, where programmers used some mnemonics. Mnemonics are nothing but some special commands or special symbols. For example, for adding 2 numbers, there will be a command called as add followed by 2 numbers will specify. So instead of writing everything in terms of zeros and ones, a machine language, programmers used to write programs using mnemonics. Some commands, some sort of commands they used. But this assembly language program is not understood by the computers for execution purpose. Therefore, there is a translator need. We require a translator for converting our assembly language program into machine language program, right? there assembler is used. So the main purpose of assembler is to convert the assembly language program into a machine language program. So that's what it is mentioned here. Assembler converts the target assembly program into relocatable machine code. Now machine code is available, but still it's not ready for execution. It has to go through another phase, another component, which is called as linker, right? So let us understand this linker in detail, because it is invisible as when we execute our programs. When we execute programs through compiler, this linker is actually invisible. But the people who use that Turbo editor or Borland editor, they might know what a linker does. If you press F9 command, it produces object code only, but not executable code. When you press Alt F9, then executable code, that means .exe files will be generated. You need to understand the difference between .obj and .exe. .obj are not ready for execution. .exe are ready for execution, right? And how do you produce this relocatable machine code? Is simply a .obj file. Then how do you produce .exe file? That is with the help of a linker. So what is the job of a linker? You need to understand this properly. What linker does is, linker simply identifies several parts of the programs which are required for execution. What does it exactly mean? For example, you have included several library files or header files which are imported into your C program by using with the help of hash include. And the function definitions exist in the corresponding preprocessor directives, whereas the function calls are in your main program, right? So the main job of a linker is to link every function call to the corresponding function definitions that are present in the header files. I repeat it. The job of linker is to link every function call in your C program or any program to the corresponding function definitions where they are actually present. They are actually present in predefined libraries. For example, in stdio.h, we have printf and scanf. If you use printf function in your main, then printf function needs to be linked with its definition, which is there in stdio.h. So that is the main job done by your linker. And also, we write our own functions also. Instead of using predefined functions, sometimes we write user-defined functions. And user-defined functions also requires to be properly linked. That means function calls must be properly linked to their function definitions. I'm saying linked. The meaning of linked is every function call is replaced by the address of its function definition. That is called linking, right? So once everything is properly linked, then your file, your machine code is now ready for execution. Okay, so the main job of linker is to link all the required files needed for execution, right? If you look at this diagram, what exactly linker is doing, you will understand this. So there are several files. For example, I have included a source file, another source file, another source file, and this is actually my program. This is actually my program, but I need all the